All right, I want to get you guys out of here as quick as possible. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And if you have your Bibles, if you have a Bible, do me a favor and turn to 1 Peter. 1 Peter. First Peter, right at the beginning. 1 Peter 1.
I'm not good with my phone. Any more
You say what? First Peter 1, I think.
Yeah, right at the beginning. 1 Peter 1. Have you ever done any significant Bible studies on 1 Peter that you can recall? 1, 2, couple? Good. 1 Peter has recently become one of my favorite books, and it is particularly applicable to the world that we find ourselves living in today. And I just want to look at the first two verses. That's it, just the first two verses. Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to those who are elect exiles of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, according to the foreknowledge of God the Father, in the sanctification of the Spirit, for obedience to Jesus Christ, and for sprinkling with his blood. May grace and peace be multiplied to you. Those two verses, it's really one long sentence. It's just packed with really significant stuff. In particular, I love the way he phrases this, and it becomes kind of a theme through the whole book. The elect exiles. That phrase is important. They are elect, meaning they are God's children. Chosen, redeemed, sanctified. He talks about that. But they're also exiles. And he doesn't literally mean exiles, people who have been banished from their original home. He means because they're Christians, they're exiles. They're exiles in the world. They are elect, and yet they are exiles. They are a gentleman named Stanley Hauerwas, a very famous Catholic theologian who has written a lot about Christian faith. Stanley Hauerwas wrote a book entitled Resident Aliens to describe Christians. That we are residents of certain countries and places, but we are also aliens in a sense. We don't really belong. We don't match the culture in which we live. There's something distinct about our citizenship, which belongs in heaven, even while we reside here. We are resident aliens. But we are also, as Peter says, elect exiles. And that means that we have an identity that is distinct from the identity the world gives. It means that we live distinct lives from the way the world lives, not in a haughty or arrogant way, but simply by nature of our identity. Who we are means that we live and think and behave a certain way. Like, my family and I lived in Indonesia for 4 years. We were Americans living in Indonesia. And in some ways that made us always outsiders. We weren't Indonesians. We didn't grow up with their culture. I didn't get their TV shows, their jokes, their mannerisms. None of that was mine. And yet I could carry on a conversation, have a cup of coffee, and enjoy fellowship with Indonesians. But at the end of the day, I wasn't one of them. I was an American. And that wasn't always bad. It just meant there was always a little bit of separation. I had different values than they did. I had different expectations than they did. I viewed the world differently than they did. And Peter says that that's kind of the way it is for us as Christians. When the Christian identity really burrows itself into your heart, you begin to realize that you are residents of this place, but your citizenship is somewhere else. And so while you can sit down and have a cup of coffee and enjoy fellowship with people of this world, and you can live your life here and function just fine, there's always a bit of a separation because you don't value the things they do. You don't think the way they do. You think of yourself as having a certain set of expectations and worldviews, and they don't share it. Even though you can laugh at jokes together and watch a TV show and have a cup of coffee, there's something that's just not the same. And Peter's going to run with that theme through this whole book, because it explains a whole lot of things. The culture that we live in is rapidly moving very fast away from a Christian worldview. Which means that the more that we maintain a Christian worldview, the more elect exiles we're going to be. We will be resident aliens. Strange people living in this country. Odd people with different values. Maybe even despised people for not holding the values of the culture. Peter says in the rest of the book, don't be surprised at that. You're not citizens here. In fact, if you were, and you got along with everybody, you might not be one of God's elect anymore. You're different by the very fact that you're part of the family of God. Now that means a lot. As I said, there's a danger there in becoming arrogant or haughty, and that's not what Peter's talking about at all. In fact, if you look at verse 2, we are elect exiles according to the foreknowledge of God. In other words, He chose, He called. It wasn't us. The sanctification of the Spirit has done this work in us, making us oddballs in the world. The Spirit, as the Spirit works in us, makes us weird, gives us different values, gives us different priorities. And then that last sentence, for the purpose of obedience to Jesus Christ and for sprinkling with His blood. That's a covenant reference back to Moses, which we'll talk about later. You're weirdos for the purpose of obedience, not for the purpose of just being weird. You ever met Christians who were just weird? And it was not because they were Christians. They were just weird. We're not weird for weird's sake. We're oddballs because of obedience to Jesus Christ. And that makes us odd. I think what we're going to do this year is run with 1 Peter in these Bible studies. There are 5 chapters in 1 Peter, which makes it perfect for dividing it up in half and having 10 sessions, spending half-ish a chapter each. It's a short book, so it's not, you could read it in one sitting in about 30 minutes. If you just start at the beginning and read straight through. It takes about 30 minutes to read the whole thing. But it is loaded with really important messages for Christians living in an increasingly hostile culture where we are resident aliens. And I think you'll have some really good conversations if you end up leading a group. 1 Peter will force you into some odd conversations and some new ways of looking at things. I don't know if you've ever thought about yourself as elect exiles. In some ways it's a little comforting because it explains why we don't seem to match up. And Peter would say, that's okay. That's okay. Your citizenship is in a different place. You live here, but this is not where your citizenship is. And that's okay. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we give you thanks that you have called us to be citizens of a new country, a new place, a new homeland, citizens of your kingdom, and yet we still reside here with just a very different set of values, worldviews, and mission in the world around us. And so the more we live as citizens of your kingdom, the more out of step we start to become in this other kingdom. And so we ask, Father, for clarity and wisdom. We don't want to be out of step just for the sake of being out of step. We want to be out of step for the sake of obedience to Jesus Christ and for the sake of being your elect, the ones you have called and sanctified by your Spirit. Through obedience and love and faithfulness, Lord, help us to get comfortable being oddballs for the sake of your kingdom and your Son, Jesus Christ, in whose name we pray. Amen. So here's what I want to do tonight. Very quickly, I just The purpose of tonight is just to quickly run through what we're talking about doing, give you a chance to ask questions so you can wrap your head around it, and this will be like your chance to say, yes, I want to do this, or, this is not what I thought it was. That way everybody knows what they're getting into. And if you're still on board, then we'll plan another meeting for next month where we will start to actually look at who's going to be in what groups, how you're going to coordinate it, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty stuff next month. And then in August, we'll actually finalize group membership, contact those people, get everything, all the pieces in place. So let me walk through this real quick, and feel free to fire off anytime, because the purpose of this is to ask questions so that you know exactly what we're doing here. And I think it'll be clear, but if it's not, make sure you jump in here. So the purpose of what we're doing here is three things. One, of course, is biblical knowledge. We want people to know more about the Word of God. That seems obvious. One of the dangers, I don't know, can you call it a danger? One of the potential pitfalls of small group Bible study is that we sit around and study the Bible, but we don't apply it. And so we become knowledgeable about the Scriptures, but it doesn't make much difference. And that's not what we want. That's not what we want. We don't want to just look at the words and go, oh, that's an interesting historical fact about Peter. I didn't know that. And then go on our merry way. We actually want it to change us. And the Word of God does that even when you're not paying attention. So it's not like there's a danger in studying the Bible. That's why that's a loaded word. But I don't want it to just be, oh, that's interesting, and then we all go home. We want it to be something that say, oh, that's interesting, and that changes the way I look at things. That changes the way I might approach that guy at work tomorrow or whatever. So biblical knowledge is one, but tied very closely to that is Christian discipleship. And by Christian discipleship, that word has various meanings, but what I mean by it is what Peter's talking about here, obedience to Jesus Christ. Discipleship just means being a disciple of Jesus, which means to imitate him. And so by reading the Scriptures and studying them with other Christians, we learn what walking with Jesus looks like, and then we actually challenge each other, encourage each other to do it. So these groups kind of become a place where we can gently, you gotta be careful of this, and we don't want to be a bull in a china shop, but where we can gently challenge, encourage, iron sharpens iron, towards being disciples of Jesus. And we'll talk about that more. I'm not asking you to rush off into that. It is much safer to just do academic Bible study. Most people don't mind that. It's like, oh yeah, I can study that and then I'll leave and be on my way. Discipleship is more like, what are we going to do about that? And that starts to get a little personal, and that makes people nervous. So don't be nervous about it if you've never done anything like that before, because we'll talk about it first before you ever do it, and I'll give you some ways to kind of approach it so it's not pushy or weird, or it's just conversational, and everybody gets a chance to talk, and I think you'll find it very casual. And the third purpose is congregational fellowship, is getting people together outside of just Sunday morning, so that people can get to know other people, enjoy fellowship together, and build Christian friendships and community. So I don't want any one of those to be the main thing. It's kind of like you shouldn't be able to separate it very easily, that these three are all just kind of working together when a group is working really well. And this is kind of what we're aiming at. More knowledge about the Scriptures, which leads to living as disciples of Jesus and improving fellowship and connections among congregation members. Right? Okay. This group is kind of like our leaders group. There are a couple people who couldn't be here tonight, which is why I'm recording it for them so they can watch what we're doing, so they know what they're getting into also. But this leaders group, the idea behind this is that the leaders group will meet once a month with me primarily, or if I can't, or if Pastor John wants to come in and do one, he can also. So that the leaders basically, the purpose behind that is so that when we say, hey, we want you to lead a small group, some of you feel really confident doing that, and you're like, done. Some of you are probably thinking, I don't know what to study, I don't know how to prepare, I don't have time because I'm working a job, I got kids, whatever the issue is. So the purpose of gathering the leaders together once a month with me is that we're going to walk through the study together, and then you've already studied it once. We've already talked about discipleship questions. We've already talked about some questions you can ask in your group, and then you can just go duplicate it. And you don't have to make up your own curriculum from scratch. You don't have to try to figure out what to say and how to say it. You can just walk in and redo it. And since you've already wrestled with a lot of the issues or heard other people wrestling with it, you already anticipate what the people in your group will say, so you don't feel like you might get caught off guard by some tricky question. So the idea is that this group will meet once a month, that we'll go over in advance. Let's say it's 1 Peter 1 through 12. That's the first session. We'll go through that together. We'll read 1 Peter 1 through 12. We'll wrestle with it in little groups around the room. We'll talk about it as a group. Then I'll give you some discipleship ideas about how to kind of poke people a little bit and ask them about their life and discipleship questions. And then once you've done that here, it should be easy to walk off and do it there. So it's not intimidating. I'm going to give you study questions. I'm going to give you discipleship questions. And I'm going to answer any questions you have. So I don't know what to do. Verse 7, that seems loaded to me. What do I do with that? We'll talk about it. That way you don't get caught off guard. Now, here's the freedom part. I need to say this kind of in the background. None of this is mandatory. If you don't like the questions and you got your own, use them. If you think the discipleship stuff, the way I'm approaching it doesn't work for you and you've got your own way to do discipleship, do it. That's okay. This is not mandatory. These are just suggestions. That way it takes the pressure off of you having to come up with it from scratch. You can feel free to use it word for word. Or you can say, I like this one and this one, but I don't like these other ones. Whatever. This is just meant to be helpful. It's not meant to be a prescription that you must follow. The whole program is kind of running that way. I would like the groups to generally stay on the main topic, which, like 1 Peter in this case, so that we don't. There's nothing wrong with a bunch of other Bible studies, but in a sense, there is a unifying factor to this, where everybody in all these groups are all studying the same thing. So it's not that it's bad if somebody says, you know what, I'd rather do Romans. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that if several groups start to do that, then we lose the unifying factor, and I kind of want that, at least initially. I just want to see how it works, and if we can create a conversation, a common dialogue by studying the same thing in different places. And now, there are a couple of you who are already running Bible study groups, and this might not be applicable to you, so feel free to, do what works best for you. Again, none of this is prescriptive. I just want to set it up so it's helpful for you. The structure for the year looks like this. We're going to start in September. It's going to go through May or June. Summer vacation, I'm thinking May, because June, people start leaving for vacations and kids are getting out of school, and it just gets a lot more crazy. So September through May-ish, the groups would meet once a month. This group would meet once a month, and then your home groups would meet once a month. So you'd be meeting twice, everybody else would just be meeting once. When we get to May, and it'll be like a last hurrah, finish the Bible study out, enjoy some fellowship together, and then you're done. And the idea for this is that we'll end the groups, and we'll start brand new ones the next September. Now, some people don't like that idea, some people do, and I'll tell you why we're doing it this way. A couple reasons. One is so that leaders don't feel like they have just signed up for a 14-year commitment. There's a clear break. So you can try this for 10 months, and you can say, you know what? I did my time. I'm not very good at this, or I don't like this. And you can get out. And you don't feel like you're dropping the ball, and your group's got to find a new leader. The groups all end in May. So there's a clear break. Groups that don't have good chemistry, we get a chance to reset them without them feeling bad about it. Like, if we just run these continually, and there's a group that just isn't working, and they just stop meeting because they're not working, then they're kind of the failure group, and everybody knows it. If you stop in May, if you didn't have good chemistry, we're done. The group ends, and we'll just start new ones again. The bummer is, of course, that if you have a group that really clicks really well, you might want to keep going. And there's nothing wrong with you doing that. But I'm trying to avoid two pitfalls, too. One is groups that become a bit of a clique, where those people all hang out and love being with each other. And in some sense, there's nothing wrong with that. And in another sense, the purpose for this is to kind of get the congregation mixing and getting to know each other. So it's good and bad. It's not wrong or right, it's just what's your goal. And the goal of this is to mix up the congregation a little bit and give people a chance to meet new people. So that's another reason we're ending it in May. That way we can reset the groups again. But if you had a great group and you guys want to keep getting together once a month to have a beer and pray and cook out, do it. That would be fantastic. That would be an awesome outshoot of this if fellowship opportunities continued on. Or if you said, you know what, hey, our group is clicking so well, we just want to keep on doing our own thing, and we're just going to keep right on going. You could do that. We can talk about that. I prefer if you didn't, but I'm not gonna stop anybody from doing Bible study with a great group that clicks, right? So hear what I'm saying. There's a tension there. I don't want to run roughshod over things that are working well, but I also want to challenge people to mix it up a little bit. 10 months is a long time. A good chance to get to know some folks. Anyway, so that's the reason for the rhythm that we're doing there. And if you've got a phenomenal group that you want to just keep on going, let's talk about it. Let's see what we can work out. So we don't want to mess up something that works well. Here's kind of the schedule I'm looking at for the summertime. So we're meeting today, and we're just kind of going over the basics. You get a chance to ask questions. We get a chance to think this through a little bit. Then July 20th, these are Wednesdays, by the way. Wednesday nights it's a congregation night, and I just stuck them on Wednesday nights. It worked for most people tonight. If Wednesdays are terrible, let me know. But July 27th, we're going to go over how we're going to choose group members, and we're going to start looking at 1 Peter together a little more in depth, so you have a little background. I'm going to announce this to the congregation probably second week of July, and ask them to sign up the end of July, the last 2 Sundays. I haven't worked all this out yet, but I think what I'm going to do is put a handout together, stick it in the bulletin, and ask people if they're interested to fill it out and drop it off with one of the ushers. And then we'll collect all that information, and then on August 10th, those small groups will be finalized, so you'll know who you're going to ask to be in your group, and then you're going to go about asking those people. And then September 7th, again, the first Wednesday in September, we would have our first meeting to go over the 1 Peter section for September, if you know what I'm talking about. We'll do the first Bible study topic on September 7th, and you'll run with it whenever it works for you in September. Then we'll meet again in October, and you'll run with it. November, it'll be towards the beginning of the month. That way you have the rest of the month to meet with your group whenever it works well for you. I'm moving quick here. Questions? Bert?
Just a suggestion.
Yeah.
As far as telling the congregation, forming them, I'd include it in like the weekly emails that April sends, and I'd probably give yourself like 3 weeks of, because in the summer people are out of town,
Yep.
or miss. I give yourself like 3 weeks before. So there's 3 weeks where individuals have a chance to either email you or drop it off with an usher. So I would just be concerned if we only did it for a week or two, like our numbers of people signing up might be a little lower, just because the chances of someone missing 2 Sundays in a row in the summer is probably a lot higher than in the fall.
Yep. No worries, brother. I consider myself a master at roping people into things, so I will finagle and nag as much as I possibly can. I was going to say, that's what you're doing. Right?
She said that's true.
It's true. That's true. Just keep sending emails. Keep talking to people. Let's talk about choosing group members, because that leads right into this discussion. How are we going to do this? I'm going to ask congregation members to sign up starting mid-July, and that sign-up will run through the end of July. We're not going to pick groups until August 10th, so we have several weeks to work with there. It's going to be kind of like a draft, I think.
I already lost my first choice.
That's
Already done some negotiation.
no.
I got some money.
Will there be an auto pick too?
There will not. Now here's what we're going to do. I haven't worked this out yet, so if you've got ideas, I'm open to suggestions. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to make a long list of everybody who said they wanted to join. I have no idea how many people that will be, but we'll make a list of everybody who wants to join. I will have my own list of people I want to join. These are especially newer folks in the last year or so who I want to plug in, and who may not know a lot of people yet, and will need an invitation to say, hey, I'm running this Bible study group. I would love for you to don't say, Pastor Mike said I have to call you. No, I would love for maybe even get the name a week ahead of time and try to hunt them down. I'll try to point them out to you and you can say hi to them. But they might need a special invitation because they don't know the congregation well enough to just jump in. They might sign up, but if they don't, I'll have a list of people I would like to invite. They may say no, that's okay. I want them invited even if they don't participate. So people that are kind of fringe who I want to plug in. So the reason I say a draft is because your groups will basically, let's say there's 4 or 5 couples in your group, you and 4 or 5 other couples, depending on the size of your house. I mean, you got to determine that for you. I'm not gonna say it has to be a certain size, but let's say it's you and 4 other couples. I'd like at least one of those couples to be one of those fringe people. And a lot of you, especially if you've been in the congregation for years or you're in leadership, you all know the same people. So starting tonight, if I said, go choose your group members, the same 8 people would get 10 phone calls. So that's why I said it kind of has to be like a draft, where this round 1, you get 1 pick. Then we mark all those people off, and we pass the list around again. You get 1 more pick. Otherwise, we'll keep asking the same people, and the ones who don't get asked will never get asked, because we all know the same people. The people who are core leaders of our congregation already know each other. And those tend to be the people you'd think, oh, I'd love them to be in my group. And so we'll all ask all the same people. So the draft sounds weird, and there are weird implications there, like what if you get picked last? 7th grade kickball, you know, it's terrible. So I think that kind of has to be, confidential is the wrong word, but I mean, I wouldn't want anybody to feel bad if they were in the 4th round, you know what I'm saying? And it's not meant to be that way, it's just meant, who are people you get along with? Oh, all those people are gone because other people get along with them too. Here's some people, and I know none of you are, you know, rude or arrogant. You're not going to exclude people because I don't. But there may be people you get along with, or somebody who's kind of fringe. I'm using that word loosely here. So again, don't use that against me when you see that list. They're not fringe. I just mean, you know, you may know some of those people. You say, you know what, I have a connection with that lady. Let me ask her. So that's why I say the draft format. Yeah, Ricky?
One thing I just suggest is location might play into this too.
Location?
Yeah.
Say a little more.
So you may have some people live out in Fulshire, some.
Exactly. No, you're right.
in Houston.
You're right about that, Ricky.
It's something you might want to consider.
And I have to keep this simple. And in other words, some churches do this by zip code, but that gets a little more prescriptive. I have to track all the zip codes, and then I have to figure out who's in, you know, I don't want to do all that. But you're right, that may make a difference. And I'm not sure what the best way to handle that is. Should I print the zip codes with the name? Well, that doesn't even mean anything to me when you say zip codes. I don't know what they mean. I know what mine is. I think I might know one more, but so I don't know if you've got ideas on how that could be helpful, let me know.
I'm just thinking some people may not like to travel late at night.
Yeah, agreed.
Older people, they may have kids. I mean, it could be a lot of things.
You're absolutely right. Childcare is another issue. I know families that have kids. This is going to be an issue because we can't provide childcare for small groups. So how do we work that out? I don't know. I think the groups just have to kind of figure that out. If you've got somebody in your group who really wants to be part of your group, but third, I don't have an easy solution for these things. I think we just have to kind of navigate it as best we can and see what we can do.
Will
Yeah,
they
Katie.
submit availability when they say they're interested in a small group, just for logistics?
That's a good question. Katie asked about availability, like could I put on there, I'm available
Only
these nights.
Tuesdays or not
certain days a
Wednesdays,
week.
just to help us with the draft.
I can do that. My only concern was the exponentially increasing complexity. But
Like for the
I could
data
certainly
analysis of
ask
that, or-
them. Well, in other words, so you get a Tuesday and a Thursday. Oh, well, I guess not. Anybody else a Tuesday group in here? Because I got a Tuesday over here, and they go and do Tuesday. We're doing Thursday, and I don't know how to work any of that stuff out. I can put it on there. It could be helpful information, but
I'm just worried about groups forming and then not being able to find.
agreed.
I don't know if that really would be.
Yeah, I can ask about that. I'll put that on the form. Mark 2 nights that work well for you.
Or 2 nights that do not.
Do not, yeah. Yeah.
And there's only 7 nights, just tell them to put all the nights to work.
Yeah.
No,
That's true.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's only once a month. So what if third Thursdays are bad, but fourth Thursdays are fine? Because this gets so complex trying to work it out, that's why I didn't do that. But I certainly could put it on there and then let the groups do with it whatever they want.
I mean, we're just talking right here. I don't think I'm gonna do it on a weeknight. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna do it on Friday, Saturday, or
Yeah.
sometimes Sunday.
Absolutely.
But there may be people that wanna do it on a weeknight.
Yes. And that's another thing in the freedom aspect here. Whenever you want to meet, you want to do Saturday morning breakfast? Do it if that works for your group. I mean, this does not have to be a Thursday night when everybody's tired from work. Right? You want to do it Sunday evening? Go for it. Whatever works for you. Which house are you going to meet in? I don't care. You could meet in the leader's house every week. As a group, you could say, hey, let's rotate among our homes. Whatever works. I mean, there's really a lot of freedom here. All I want to do is get people together, have a common topic, and work through some discipleship kind of stuff. But as far as any of the other logistics, totally fine with whatever works well for you. You want to get together and do dessert? Do it. You want to have a meal? Go for it. You just want to have drinks? Whatever works best for you. Because every one of you has a different schedule and set of circumstances, different sized homes, whatever works for you. Janice?
With the other thing that Ricky was talking about, would it work if you had all the people that signed up and you give them our names and our zip codes and say there's only 5 couples per group and they can sign up with us knowing where we live and that sort of thing?
The reason I didn't do it that way is because it's the reverse dodgeball thing.
I'm sorry.
It's the reverse of the dodgeball scenario. So, hey, Janice, I'd love to be. Sorry, I already got 5. Oh, okay, that's okay. Hey, Nitchies, can I be? Oh, sorry, we already got 5. Oh, sorry, that's okay. I'll call you sick.
But they would see by the paper that you've already got 5 couples signed up, so they're.
You mean just post all the papers and then first come, first serve?
No. Because then some people are gonna have hurt feelings because their name, nobody's gonna sign up on their list and.
Yeah, we'll have an empty list.
Yeah, Janice, you assume you guys will be full, but I mean.
I'm just trying to solve the zip.
Yeah, I know.
And not only that, but kids are an issue too because like we live so far away, we don't have any young kids.
Yep.
I mean, I'd hate for you to stick a young couple with kids who aren't going to, they're going to be like, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Yeah, again, there's some flexibility here in the way we think about this. We might aim. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know any answer to that yet.
Maybe we check into the youth group for our high schoolers that want to do babysitting that can have one day a month where 3, 4, 5, however many it needs to see if they're willing to be babysitters for.
That would be nice to have a
students.
babysitter list that people could go to and they know they can trust them because they're in the congregation and they
Yeah.
know their families. If you have kids that are.
That brings in more into connectivity
A
too.
And
lot
it's
of
already
it work out when
there.
you get the list of names, and it'll come together and
Yeah.
adapt once we know who's interested.
Yep.
Where I came from, we were very big into babysitting.
I'm sorry, could you say that again,
We
Charlie?
were big into babysitting. And we did exactly what she said. We did put the names, but we had the sign-up time with all the addresses and you signed up. And like I said, when one was filled up, it didn't mean that if that you really wanted on there, you could still put your name on there. I mean, but it worked out good because I didn't want to get on one because, driving at night and have to go a long ways.
Yeah.
So those are options to do that.
Yeah. I'll think about that. I'll talk to the staff and see what they think about that. Kathy?
I may be repeating some of what she said, but if you put options on there, I think maybe like have kids want to stay local, if they, or don't want to drive at night, want to stay local, those people we could look up and find out where they are, and if they're in full sure, that way, I don't know, just a thought, that then that, I would think, would knock down the numbers, we would have to know exactly where they were.
Yeah.
You may only
And
have
I
2 or 3
apologize,
like
we
that.
couldn't.
Approximately how many names do you have on your fringe list in your mind?
I haven't made it yet, but as I'm thinking about just people who've joined the church in the last year and a half, 50?
Oh my, okay.
50 families or people?
50 families?
Awesome.
The draft would be nice for newer couple or, newer families because then there's no pressure on them. What group do I pick? Who do I fit in with? You're just saying, here's a group. Like, we're reaching out to them. I think that would be really beneficial for the newer.
For people who don't
It
know
takes the
each other
pressure off
well.
of that,
Yeah.
they don't feel out of place. They automatically have a group they're part of.
Yeah, my one concern about signing up is people who are nervous or fear of rejection or don't know other people well won't sign up.
Exactly.
Because they don't know who to sign up with and they are nervous about it. And I mean, hey, I know the Nichies. Oh, that's awesome. I'll be in the Nichies group. But if I don't know who any of these people are, am I going to go sign up? So the idea was that we would call and invite people to be in our group.
You could still invite people that, once you had the initial list, but then you couldn't add to this list, or people that you might want to encourage them.
Yeah.
You could make personal invites at that time.
I also wonder, I'm thinking out loud here, I also wonder if less people would participate if it meant they had to go out and sign up on the table with a certain couple, than if they just filled out a form, we said, we'll call you and arrange a group. I don't know. If we put the onus on them to do it, will they be less likely?
That part, it's a mixture, because some people would like that, some people won't.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know.
Well, I'll work it out. I'll give this some more thought and we'll come up with something. Yeah. Okay.
Wait.
Yeah, Don?
When you make the announcement and everything.
Yeah. Wow.
Could you just please make sure that you make it very clear to everybody that it's not just for couples? That maybe
Yeah.
make an emphasis for single people as well?
Yep, absolutely.
Very good.
Are you thinking about the future here?
You got a daughter that's single.
Oh, yeah. Tony?
Which night of the month or which particular day are you thinking about having this leadership meeting?
I don't know.
Wednesdays during
I can't do Wednesdays because I teach confirmation.
Confirmation and admin service.
Well, the first one.
The first one is set, September 7th. That's a Wednesday because there's no Living in 3D then. It hasn't started yet. But after that, Living in 3D and confirmation are meeting every Wednesday.
I know that's why I was kind of curious.
So
where
it
you-
can't be then.
Okay, it can't be on Wednesday. Okay. It can't, okay.
We'll just have to pick a day. I've got to work on church council and elders and a couple other groups that meet also at those times. Choir. So I need to find an evening that works. But I'm leaning right towards the beginning of a month. That way the rest of the month groups can get together. Yeah. Yeah.
Would it work if you did something that was more like a group email and or chat type thing? If you are giving questions and receiving questions, and it could be something. If everybody doesn't have one specific time to get there, but all the information is still good and needs to be exchanged, could it be done in like a
Give me
type way?
an example of what you're talking about.
Like you had a Facebook Messenger thing that was just for our Bible study, or we have like chat groups within like the Moms Club that I was in and things like that.
Right.
So you would have like a chat group, a Yahoo chat group that would be like, here's our Bible study questions for this week. Take a little time to read over them, and let's all get back to your questions, and we can have group discussions. Everyone can see the forum, but if there's not one good night where it's good for everyone to come up here, it's still all that information can be exchanged, questions can be asked and answered. And
Yeah.
it's not mean anyone would have to try to come up on the same day.
It's true, but then what we would miss is the teaching, because it's hard to teach in a chat room. So the idea is that I will videotape it, and people that can't be there that night can watch it. And they can pick up the teaching and the questions that the other groups wrestled with. And I can email them the discipleship kind of question stuff and ask them if they have, need anything else. Okay. Yeah, so these groups, which we're tentatively calling Acts groups, Acts Bible studies, they're going to start meeting then in September with how we formulate these groups. The topic, as I said already, is going to be 1 Peter. There's just a bunch in 1 Peter that I think you'll find extremely valuable for your Christian faith and for the culture that we currently live in. And if I could encourage you to just give 1 Peter a read over the next week or two, it's only 5 chapters long. It's a fairly quick read. And it's really good. If you slow down and look at what he's saying, you will recognize where our culture is headed and how more difficult it is to be a Christian and be consistent in this culture. And Peter is going to address that. The issues of suffering and rejection by the culture and faithfulness in the midst of a hostile culture and the appropriateness of not oppression, what's the word I'm looking for? Difficulties and hardships, that those, God sends those. And they're okay. We don't have to think that, God has abandoned us because we go through hardships. No, those are actually ordained by God. In the same way that Christ suffered, so will we suffer if we're obedient, if we are resident aliens. So take a look at 1 Peter in the next couple weeks and just read it through. It won't take you a long time at all. Let me jump back real quick to those dates again, if you just want to mentally file those away. What other questions? That's it. That's all I've got. What other questions do you have that I can kind of answer and help you wrestle with as we think about this?
What led you to do this?
A couple things led this. One is people stay in a congregation when they feel connected to it. If you're new to a congregation, and I've told new people this, you kind of just have to suck it up and just go for like 3 months until you finally get to know some people well enough that you feel comfortable. That's really hard.
It's a big deal.
The number one reason that people leave a church is because they don't feel like anybody knows them. And they don't feel like they know anybody. And because they don't have a connection, they don't really see the point. Now, we'd like to say, Lutheran Christians, well, the love of the Lord will keep them there. But it's a community, it's a family. I mean, we talk like that on Sundays, right? It's a family of faith. But if you do not feel like you're part of the family, you don't stick around. You're going to find somewhere else where you do feel part of the family. But the way we were doing it, it was just Sunday morning. So if you wanted to become part of the community, and you just came on Sundays, which a good Christian would do, how long would it take you before you finally actually got to know somebody? It'd take forever. And this is a way to jumpstart relationships and help people get to know other people. The idea for me was, what do I do with these new folks? I have these Welcome to Memorial class. You've been to those on those Mondays. And I say, welcome to Memorial. And then we kind of let them loose. To what? Where do I send them? How do I plug them in? And we give them a long list of things. Hey, there's tennis clubs, there's women in mission. If you want to join these groups, go ahead. But then the onus is on them to try to claw their way into a group who already know each other, and they don't know anybody, and I don't know any of your names. I feel bad about that. And you all know each other, and I'm just standing here. How can we plug people in? Another one was, how can we increase congregational fellowship? We've talked in the past about trying to create groups that get together and have spontaneous barbecues and cookouts, and when we do it, people love it, and they come over to our house and they enjoy having. But how do you get the congregation to do that? Well, you got to formalize it somehow. And the other one, honestly, was discipleship. How do you move people from, oh, that's an interesting lesson in the Bible. How do you move them to having the more difficult conversation with other Christians? So how are you living that out this week? That's a real step up, right? Because in your typical Bible study, it's people talking about the Bible, and it's kind of safe and academic. But how do you take it to the next level and say, hey, I'm your friend. You told me about that guy at work, that neighbor of yours. 1 Peter says this. How are you going to live that out with her this week? That's a little more personal, but to have that kind of conversation, you got to be in a smaller group. You got to know people and trust them. So all of those things together is what kind of pushed this idea for me to create something. Create fellowship, create connections in the congregation, have a place to plug new folks in, and increase not just Bible knowledge, but discipleship and people talking to one another about living as Christians, not just talking about an academic subject of it. The Bible, talking about Christian living.
Good answer.
Is that good?
What's the plan for future new members? You gonna feed them in
Yes.
as we go, or just
Yeah.
wait a year?
When this gets started, the plan is that when they come to that Welcome to Memorial class, I already have a Bible study group I'm plugging them into. But I gotta jumpstart this so I can do that. So that I never meet with those people and then say, here's a list of things you can do, see ya. But I say, hey, welcome to Memorial, here's your small group. This leader is going to be calling you this week. And this is what it means to be a part of the life of this congregation, is to plug in and be a part of a group. Zach's going to call you this week. Hey, Zach, here's a great couple. I think they'd be a great match for your group. That's the plan. Anything else? Tony?
Perhaps as another alternative, you might consider the sign-up sheet, but leave the name of the leader off. Just put the general location, like Fulcher zip code, or the name of the subdivision, you know, and zip code. And leave the name off of who the leader would be, and then, you know, put North Katy, you know, or Morton Road, near Morton Road, or something like that, or Morton Road in Katy Hockley, and put the zip code, but leave the name off, and then, just as a suggestion for the sign-up sheets.
Yeah. That might end up being the best way to do it. I don't know. My concern is never for the core members of Memorial who feel comfortable here, because they already feel comfortable and they will do that. My concern is the kind of fringe people who are newer, who aren't as involved, who aren't as motivated, and who will walk right past that sign-up table and never give it another thought. But if somebody calls them and says, hey, I'd like you to be part of my group, they'd probably say, all right. They might not sign up on their own. You guys would all sign up. You're not actually the people I'm worried about. It's the people who wouldn't sign up.
That's where we reach out to the.
Yeah, but the problem with that, though, if you do it that way, you don't know their availability or their needs or their.
I don't know who's interested and who's not. If I leave it to them to sign up and they don't sign up, does that mean they can't do it? Or, I don't know, my kids are running around, I never got to the table. I don't know what it means when they don't sign up.
You may find after the draft and we call people and say, hey, I can't do Fridays, and we come back and say, hey, I have some Friday people that are.
I think that's the idea, Dave, that we'll find out who doesn't work, they'll go back into the pool, and once we have more information on who they are and what their needs are, we can better target a group that might work with them.
Especially for the new people, because
That's what you really want.
different people just by personality will appeal to different people, even
Absolutely.
if they don't know them. Just the sound of your voice, the way you talk, you know, how it just starts off. And so that first person.
So if you want a small group, start off offensive and loud.
Get 2 or 3 of them done. Since the groups are meeting only once a month, you don't have to get too focused on, I'm doing Friday and I can't do any other day. If next month we're gonna do it Tuesday, because that's what the group wants, you know, that can be agreed to by the group. What weeknight works for you next month?
I think that's the best way to do it, Pat, is the first meeting you'll kind of have to set.
Be flexible.
But when you get everybody together, you can say, hey, before we leave tonight, let's set the next meeting. Everybody check your calendar.
It's just one day.
Exactly.
Yeah, because, you know, a lot of us work, we travel, we're not here, so
Yep.
to say we're only gonna do it on Tuesday night. it's
Exactly.
not gonna work.
Third Tuesday.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that'll work. So it might change every month, and that's okay. Just work it out with the group, whatever works best.
And not everybody can make it every time, so you
Yeah.
you don't just meet when everybody can make it.
That's right. Yeah. Here's another thing I didn't mention, but if for some reason you want to meet at church, you can do that too. You don't have to meet in your home. You can say, hey, we're going to meet in the Luma Center. And I'm not suggesting that's a great option for all of you. I'm simply saying if it was an option and you wanted it, we can do that. It's not a big deal. Like, for instance, let's say we had a group that had 3 couples with kids, and they wanted to hire 1 babysitter. And the easiest way to do that was to meet up here in the Luma Center and put their kids in the nursery. We can work that out. So just let me know if you want to do something like that, and we can work that out. If you want to meet, or your people all want to meet together, but they live 30 miles apart, and the church is central. If that works for you, we can do that. So we will be as flexible as you need to be. We can work that out.
Along a different line, a little bit of thinking, with regard to what Bible passages we are looking to study, can we have input to you on what we would like to?
You mean next year?
As we're going through the year, or is it do you have?
First Peter for the year.
For the year.
Yep.
We're gonna dig in.
Wow.
Yep. First Peter for the year. There's 5 chapters and about 9. If we meet from September to May, that's 9 months. So 5 chapters, 9 months. That allows us half a chapter a week, basically, or a half chapter a month, which seems slow, but you're only meeting once a month. And if you add in fellowship time, some prayer time, it's not like you have a 2-hour Bible study. You'll probably have like a 40-minute Bible study, and then fellowship and prayer and other things mixed in with it.
It's been going 3 hours.
If you go 3 hours, fantastic. I'd be, moving people out the door. Hey, so glad you were here, it's time to go. All right, any final questions? Okay, let me get you out of here, everybody's got a busy night. If you've got questions you didn't want to voice, just send me an email, that's totally fine. Let me know, if you would do me a favor and just confirm with me this week, if this is something you're interested in, you think you can do, just send me an email and say, hey, we're in. If you say, you know what, I just don't know if we can do this right now, send me that email too, that way I can figure out, because I don't know how many people are going to sign up, so I got to figure out how many group leaders I have to know what, I got to manage this somehow. So if 180 people sign up, which I don't think is likely, and I've got 10 leaders, we got problems. So I got to manage that a little bit. So just let me know if this is something you want to do or if this is not a good time, and we'll move forward from there. Jerry, you want to close this in prayer? Sure. Thanks.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time together with our brothers and sisters in Christ, and Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to reach out to other members of our congregation and to spend some time with them, some fellowship time, to study your word, but more importantly, Lord, to make better disciples of ourselves, to live our lives as you would have us live, to be examples and witnesses of your Son to those who do not know you. We ask that you would be with us as we all travel home, and be with us as we consider being leaders of this in this effort, and rest your Spirit upon us and guide us in how you would have us go. All these things, Lord, we bring before you in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Jerry. Have a good night, everybody.